the contest is for our lives and our souls. Not employing the spirit and the new nature to mortify sin daily is ignoring the excellent assistance that God has given us against the greatest enemy. If we neglect to use what we've received, God may justly hold back giving more. His grace and his gifts are bestowed on us to use, to exercise, and to trade with. Not mortifying sin daily is sinning against the goodness, kindness, wisdom, and love of God who furnished us with the help and moral strength we need to do that. I think back to Bonhoeffer, and it's sort of near the start, and Bonhoeffer talks about like how can we ask for greater gifts if we're not thankful for the small things we've been given? And this is the exact same. Like, how can we keep asking God for help? Like it's in every single prayer I have, right? It's like, how can I pray for you? Every single prayer point's like, oh, I need help with this. I need help with that. Like, okay, I understand that. But at the same time, it's like, are you really doing it? Like, I'm talking to myself, obviously, too. Like, are you really trying to help yourself? Like, in reality, you have the necessary things to kill off sin because God doesn't tempt us more than we can bear. So in all these situations where these little inclinations happen and like tempt us to go down the mountain, we actually have the power to go up the mountain instead. But we're not using the small things that like we've been given. We're hoping that some magic miracle will happen where everything changes. But in reality, that's not actually the case.
That is a very good point. We have what we need. He's given it to us.
Yeah. And I think like part of it is that we haven't counted like the cost properly. Like I think back to Jesus and like what kind of king doesn't count off the cost before he goes to war? And in some senses, like maybe I understand it's like a Christian thing that we still struggle with ongoing sin. But at the same time, like I think what we're experiencing is what I'm experiencing to some degree is that it's not just that I'm struggling with ongoing sin, it's that I'm content with ongoing sin. And I'm still praying that something big would happen and that this big thing would change everything. But in reality, if I counted the cost well, like these small things wouldn't happen. Or like it wouldn't happen as frequently as I would like them.
So you're saying we too easily ask for just more of this. If I only had a little bit more help, when God already has given us all this, we need to do it.
Yeah.
Rather than just keep on asking for help when He's already given us what we need to combat what we need to fight.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember like my former mentor saying like, yeah, actually, if you think about it, you have so many opportunities to evangelize, but we keep asking for opportunities to evangelize, but we're just not taking it. Like I think we are asking for those really convenient times when it's easy for us to do it. So like, for instance, if I'm eating lunch with a friend, a non-Christian friend, like that's an opportunity to evangelize. Like that literally is an opportunity. But I think the way that we're defining opportunity is one where it's like the stars align, and like
it's handed
like
perfectly into our lap. We don't have to do anything. We just put the final finishing touch. And we did it.
Like we have to be so hard carried by God, but we forget, like as you were saying earlier, that synergy, right? Like it's the same. We need to work with Him, and I think we would work with Him when we take on these small opportunities or these small gifts that are given to us.
True.
I the last thing that I wanted to chat about in this one is that, oh man, I think we already spoke a bit about it, but I love how he's not being passive is not just a matter of being passive. Like it's not a neutral stance. It's a stance where, as he says it, he's saying, not mortifying sin daily is sinning against the goodness, kindness, wisdom, grace, and love of God, who
Mm,
furnished us with the help. Like being idle to sin is not neutral. It's an act of active defiance against God and all that He's done for us.
mm. Yeah. It's pretty much squandering like this great gift that we've been given, and we
Mm.
just say, I'm going to go off and do this and ignore it.
Yeah,
But I
like
think
it's
the flip side to that is that the gift's still there. We just take it. If we just use what we have, what's left, then we can do it. And I was reading recently this. I was reading this book by Sundar Singh, the Indian dude, and he used this parable of this guy who he's walking along the river. He finds some rocks that he starts like skimming them, throwing them around, and
mm,
then halfway through he realizes that those rocks were actually diamonds. So he's just been like chucking away these precious jewels the whole time. But the whole point is that yes, he threw away all these things, but he still has like some left in his pocket, and
mm,
so he can make the most of what he still has left. It's still there. And he used that analogy to point to the fact that every day God gives us is filled with gift and blessing if we use the day well and not just waste it.
yeah, yeah. And I think that the trap that we've fallen into is that our sin's too big now. It's too much of a burden now. It's like it's the night before your assignment's due. It's like a 4K essay. You haven't started, and you're already giving up because it's too big of a thing. And so you already accept, like, all right, I'm just gonna hand it in late. I'm gonna cop the -3% or whatever. But in reality, that's not the situation. It's never too late. Like I remember in my prac, I was very, very lenient on kids in the first few weeks, just because I'm like a 21-year-old who has no idea what's going on. And my supervisors are like, David, I think you need to be more strict. And it's just like, I think you need to like start making classroom routines. And I was just like in my mind, I was like, oh, but this is my this is my last week, second last week. Like, how the heck am I gonna do that? Like, it's not gonna work. It's just like, oh, like it's not too late. Like, like you still need to like putting the effort in now would eventually make the difference. And I
Mm,
tried it, like, and during the last few lessons, like my classes were very quiet relative to before. And I think it's the same thing. It's like we think it's too late, but it's really not, Yeah.
mm,
The biggest lie we tell ourselves is that I'm just a toxic person. Or like I'm just a person I can't forgive someone even when they don't show forgiveness. But that's not the case.
mm.
Yeah.
And I think that's the easy path because if you give up, then you don't have any obligation to do anything. Because if you're just a toxic person, then you can't help it. So
Yeah.
why should you try? Because that's just who you are.
Yeah.
But yeah, as we saw before, there's no like sin doesn't just stay there. It's always advancing. You can't have a peace with it. You have to keep fighting, keep mortifying it.
Yeah. And it's like every time you keep saying that, it's pushing against you. It's making it bigger.
That's what I want you to think.
Yeah.
Everything's all right. It's just how it is. It always was this way. There's no way it
Mm.
can change.